we got to know, what is your nerd origin story, my friend?
Well, let me think. Okay, so I've told this story a million times in my
We've all told
podcast.
our own stories
So
a million
I'm gonna
times,
I'm
but hey,
gonna
it's a new audience, so
I've always told
tell
the
it again.
story of how I got into comic books, which is, to make it long story short, went to New York with my girlfriend. She said, "Hey, you're gonna love this." I said no. She took me to a store and I walked out. And then she took me again and I fell in love with it. As a kid, when I think I was 5, probably it's 2002, 2003. My parents were selling their car. It was the first car I ever knew, and I was super sad. I was crying all day. And my dad, to make me feel better, bought me a toy of the Flash. Come to find out, you know what? 2 decades later, it's the Reverse Flash, but let's ignore that. I just thought it was a cooler Flash, in yellow. And I don't know, that's just started this, like, I just hooked onto that character. I never really read The Flash or anything, and I vaguely remember watching, Justice League animated show and whatnot. But I don't know, I just started liking them, and then The Walking Dead was a big part of it. I remember telling my mom, "Hey, I'm super scared to watch this, but people say it's good." And she watched it with me. She got me, I think, the first 12 issues of The Walking Dead in
Oh wow.
Spanish.
Oh
They're
wow.
somewhere in Ecuador, so maybe they're worth
I was gonna
something.
say,
But
because you grew up in Ecuador, you didn't grow up
yeah,
here, did you?
no, I moved here. I moved to the United States 6 years ago, I want to say. So that's been a fun experience. But yeah, I mean, somewhere in Ecuador, in one box, there's 12 issues of The Walking Dead, first printing in Spanish, that are not
What?
bagged, not
Wait, you don't
boarded.
have them? Wait, you don't have them?
They're in the storage unit in Ecuador. I could find them like next time I go. I just haven't been
Oh
since I started
wow.
collecting.
That's cool. Because I mean, international comics are huge now. Like I'm seeing them more and more, especially the vintage ones. And I mean, I hate to call The Walking Dead vintage, but it's obviously a seminal book, right? It's like a very important book in if you want to call it indie comic history, but in general, just it really is a bit important book. So that's fascinating that
I
that's how
mean,
you got into it.
it's been at least 10 years since I got him. So I mean, I did like him. I do prefer him in English, funny enough, but it's whatever. But then
Why? Why is that, you think?
I don't know. I always so in Ecuador, you did get movies and all of that. I don't mean to talk trash about Ecuador. I don't want to curse either. So, but my dad would travel a lot, and my dad lived here for a portion of time when I was a kid, and he would bring me VHS tapes and just movies in English. So I did grow up listening to English as like my main like movie or TV language,
Okay.
and I don't know, it's stuck with me. I just liked it, and I like reading in English. And actually, in Ecuador, to graduate high school, you have to do like this like thesis, and it's like 10 pages. I don't know how long it is, and I did it in English. Like it just felt natural.
Oh,
And they do teach you English over there, but getting the accent was something. When I found out I was moving here, something that I really tried to get down.
I was gonna say, because when you and me first started actually talking and hearing each other, you told me that you were like always battling an accent. I'm like, dude, I
Yeah,
cannot hear it. Like,
no. I mean, yeah, you could fool me. Like when you said 6 years, I was like 6 years.
that's what I'm
Yeah, I
saying.
mean,
Like, when I first met him, I thought he'd always been here, but like,
no, June 2016 was when I moved here.
wow,
So
that's
that's
crazy.
crazy. You
What a
picked a
small
hell of a
world.
year to move here.
yeah, exactly. I like a month after things started going crazy. But I don't know, man. Growing up, Walking Dead was really important to me. Watching it with my mom every Sunday. It was like a
That's
sort of like
awesome.
this religion that we had.
That's so
Um,
cool.
and then I like going to the Marvel movies. I remember watching the first Avenger, Captain America, with my mom, and my dad also liked the Marvel movies, and he still watches all of them with me, or at least we'll watch them separately and talk about them. It's like the first thing I do, just call my dad, like, "Hey, what'd you think of Ant Man?" And I don't
That's
know, it was
awesome.
I always felt like an outsider or a nerd, and maybe didn't like fully commit to it until recently, but no shame. It's great.
Mm, yeah.
Well, especially once you get over that, like, there's like a stigma, I think, left over from like the 80s and 90s of what a quote unquote nerd is. And then nowadays it's cool to be a nerd, man. So when,
Yeah,
once you actually are able to just say screw it and be yourself, it feels so much better.
we don't really look like a Peter Parker in like the 50s, or the
Yeah.
60s. The
A
vest,
45
the
a 45-year-old high school student, Peter Parker in the
With
60s.
the pocket protectors and all, all the rest of it.
No, it's funny. Being a nerd is something that I have always known I've been. I always liked comic book related things, at least video games. I've never been much of a gamer, but I've liked watching people play. Like before YouTube, I watched my cousins play, and I'd just be like, "Mom, buy me this game," and then my cousins would play it, and I'd just be watching them play it. And I did feel like there was this like I don't know, this imposter syndrome because I don't feel like I dress at least to what people expect me to dress, by being a nerd. But it's people every nerd dresses differently.
I was gonna say, I mean, look at Longbox, man. He be showing up in some of his videos in like a straight 3-piece tuxedo, like
It's fancy.
always dressed to the
That's
nines. You know what
if I
I'm
have the
saying?
excuse to wear a suit, I will. It's
Oh, I know you guys.
just
That was like one
something.
of the because I remember you guys did an episode of Color Break recently. That was the awards show you guys did,
Yeah,
and all three of you had the 3-piece suits on and stuff, or at least the
we
suit
didn't
jackets.
we didn't need to do it. It was I just wanted to.
That's great.
Thankfully
Hey,
they
but
committed to
it
it.
sold the bit, dude.
I don't know. I like dressing up. I like clothes. My brother always makes fun of me if I'm going to like the supermarket. I'll put on like a button up, like a short sleeve, and he's like, "You're gonna buy milk? Come on, man."
So
No.
what I want to know is, because obviously for people that are international and don't know other languages or vice versa, what doesn't translate in comics? Because obviously, like it's hard with different languages for everything to translate exactly. Is there some kind of weird, funny quirk, when you read comics, whether it's in in a different language that doesn't translate and you kind of makes you giggle, where it's it just doesn't fully compute 100%?
I can't really like talk about. I mean, I can give you like short answer. There's not one Spanish, you know. Most comics are written here in the U.S., so there's like a somewhat unified language. But go to Mexico, go to Ecuador, Colombia, they're different languages entirely.
Mm.
So what they do for most children's TV and books, there's two things they can do. They can either go for like Spain Spanish, or they can go for some of this centralized Latino Spanish that I like to call it. So it's sometimes there's words that I will never say. It's just like that word doesn't exist in my vocabulary. And when I hear it, it makes sense. Like I know what they're talking about, but in my brain, I don't use it. And movies, I mean, I studied film, and there's something so weird about watching someone speak and then their voice just doesn't match the movement of their lips.
So weird.
There,
So
there's
weird.
there's some places
So
like if it's
you're a
animated,
dub guy, not a sub guy.
depends. Animated things I can watch them dubbed over because
It's not as accurate anyway,
yeah,
but
like
like if
for
you're
example,
watching like a foreign film or something, you
yes,
don't like the dubbed
no, I'll
version
watch
of it.
I'll watch
You'd
them with
rather
subtitles.
okay.
I would say like a good example is for me Shrek, and there's like I don't know if it's a hot like take, but Shrek in Spanish to me is way better than Shrek in
Really?
English. I just really love Shrek in Spanish.
That's cool.
Huh.
Shrek,
I'll have
SpongeBob, and
to
The
look it up
Simpsons.
and watch it in
That's
Spanish
cool.
just
That's
to
cool.
see what you're talking about.
I'll
What
die on that hill.
was Squid Game dubbed or was there subtitles? I can't remember.
No,
Because
that was subtitled.
Mhm.
yeah, because I would rather a subtitle where they're speaking in the native language, and because the
Mhm.
dubbed, I mean, and Netflix is leaning into this now, where with this dubbing, and it kills me. Like if it's a good enough show, like again, like Squid Game, obviously a phenomenon, right? And everyone's watching it, and once you get into it, you're reading it, and it makes sense. The story, the story translates, right? Like the gist of the story, and so if it's a good story, it's a good story. But when they dub it and they put like, and there's one I think now that's on Netflix that I couldn't get through, that it has different languages. So some of them are dubbed, some are not dubbed.
Oh,
it's like an
what?
international show, and so it's this
Uh,
German/American/British, like, and it's,
did
but
they
they,
just not wanna pay for making different versions of it? Or
I
There's
think that was the whole point, was to kind of have this like unified international thing. But the fact that they dubbed everybody, or yeah, dubbed some people, and it's like, the classic, kung fu movies where you just, it doesn't match up.
where it's
no
never even
100%.
good dubbing at all either.
Yeah.
Like, you
The
can tell the
emotion
actors
is
had no clue what they were actually saying. Like
well. What I can say about Shrek, just not to like talk about Shrek that much, is that it's one of the only movies where they're actually like they grab comedians who they were like, hey, we want you to do the voice of Eugenio Derbez was the actor who did Donkey, and he was like, hey, I want to like write my own jokes into it because some jokes just don't translate
Hmm.
to a Latino audience, and they were like, yeah, go ahead, and that makes it a little bit better, you know.
okay.
That's
Um,
cool.
and then as far as like, I do want to say anime. I don't watch a lot of anime. If I've watched two, that's too much. Nothing against it. I think it's great actually. I really enjoyed the ones I've watched. I just haven't really committed to watching a lot of it. Sometimes when I'm watching TV, I like to multitask. I'll be reading
Mhm.
comic books and
Mhm.
watching TV, which maybe isn't smart, but it's a thing I've done. And I can't watch it with subtitles if I'm like cleaning my
Yeah.
room and have to like look at the screen the whole time.
Right.
Because
Doesn't
to
make for
me,
good background noise.
TV is this comfort thing that I do it to escape sometimes doing mundane tasks. So I can't put 100% of my focus into it a lot of the times.
Right.
Plus, it's the ADD culture that we live in. So I think we all, to some degree, we all have it, and we all like want to
Oh, I'll be
do.
sitting here getting ready for a podcast, and I've got Star Trek playing on one screen. I've got Discord up on another screen. I've got this going. It's nonstop, man.
Oh, I
Both of us.
I I
We're all
like
guilty of it.
to I like to make the thumbnails for my podcast the day off. Like the day of release, I'll make the thumbnail on my phone. Um, there was this app, this photo. It was called Photoshop Mix, and it's not on the App Store anymore. But I never deleted it from my phone. So I'll be working, taking calls, and just making thumbnails. I don't know why my brain just it works like that.
Hey, if it works, man. That's
And you're
that's
not
what
alone, my
matters at the
friend.
end of the day.
You're not alone, my friend. It's all of us these days. We can never.
That's why I try to like start planning the next episode of this like right after the previous episode ends, so I've got like a week ahead of time on it.
That you know what? And it's I don't know about you guys, but when you plan out things in advance, it's super stressful. Because like for example, me and Cody were talking today, and I'm not gonna say names, but we were planning on people. Oh, who should we have on the pod? Started like pitching names. And it's like, oh, this person agreed to do it. This one would be good. And then I'm thinking like, for example, we're all going to C2E2. I don't think it's a secret. I know me and Cody plan to record an episode there. Like set up like in a closet. I don't know where, just this isolated space. Record it. So I already know that's gonna come out April 7th. So
Far away.
if Kevin Smith is like, hey, I'll be on your podcast, I'm already like, oh no. So it has to be April 21st for him to be on it. It's too complicated.
Yeah.
Planning ahead
That's
never
Google
works.
Calendar is my best friend. I'll tell you that right now.
No, I keep it all here. That's the dangerous part.
I couldn't do it, man. There's no way I could do that.
You want to hear the craziest thing? And then I'll stop. I'm old enough to remember when like Wi-Fi and internet and smartphones weren't always prevalent.
Mhm.
So I have
Yeah.
distant memories of like, I wouldn't say working because I wasn't that old, but like whether it's school or whatever, leaving a place and going home and not having internet or email for like the cycle until the next day of going to work. So like not consistently checking my
Yeah,
phone,
yeah,
not
yeah.
having, I mean, it takes it back to the ADD culture, but not having that access. And I mean, I hate to say the cliche thing, but man, it was a simpler time. Like,
It really was though, because
So
I can still remember those days, and like because I grew up like right at the tail end of that, and it's like yeah, it
so
was
yeah,
way slower paced back then.
I was born in '98, but first phone didn't even have color on the screen. It was
Mhm.
green and darker green. So I do remember those like simpler times. I would say like in my teens we started like more into like instant messaging and just texting people. But there was a big portion of my formative years where it was just like, yeah, I could play games on my computer, but I wasn't on YouTube all the time.
Right, exactly.
I remember the first time I went on YouTube.
Yeah,
So
so can I.
Yeah.
It's crazy, man.